This video is about using trigonometry to solve for an angle. The goal is I can solve for an angle of a right triangle using trigonometry. In this lesson, we're going to end up using the inverse of sine, the inverse of cosine, and the inverse of tangent. The way that we're going to get those buttons on the calculator is we're first going to press the big yellow second button, and then we're going to press sine to get the inverse of sine, cosine to get the inverse of cosine, and tangent to get the inverse of tangent. And then this is what it's going to look on your calculator screen. So the directions state for number 1, find the measure of angle A. Round your answer to the nearest tens place. So I'm going to start from angle A, and I'm going to label the two sides that are given. We have the side across from angle A, which is our opposite, and then we have the side next to angle A, which is our adjacent side. So the trig ratio that uses opposite and adjacent is going to be tangent. So I'm going to write tangent of angle A is equal to opposite, which is 6, over our adjacent, which is 20. Now our goal for this problem is to find the measure of angle A. So we're trying to isolate angle A right here. So instead of dividing both sides by tangent, what we're going to do is we're going to use the inverse of tangent. So I'm going to use the inverse tangent, and that's going to cancel the tangent. So whatever I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other side of the equation. So I'm going to do the inverse of tangent on both sides. Now the inverse and the tangent are going to cancel each other, and then you're going to be left with A is equal to the inverse of tangent of 6 over 20. Now what you're going to do is you're going to put this in your calculator. So the inverse of tangent of 6 over 20. And what I get for the measure of angle A, round it to the tens place, is 16.7 degrees. So that will be your answer. Okay, let's try number 2 now. So again, we're going from angle A. I'm going to label the two sides that are given, which is my hypotenuse, which is across from the right angle, and next to it, we have our adjacent side, which is 3. So the trig ratio that uses adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine. So I'm going to do cosine of angle A is equal to adjacent, which is 3, over our hypotenuse, which is 15. Now to cancel the cosine, we're going to use the inverse. So I'm going to do the inverse of cosine on both sides of the equation. So the inverse of cosine and cosine, those cancel, and now I'm left with A is equal to the inverse of cosine of 3 over 15. Now we're going to put this into our calculator. The inverse of cosine of 3 over 15, which is equal to 78.5. So the measure of angle A is 78.5 degrees. Number 3, again, we're going to start with angle A, and I'm going to label my two sides that are given, which is my hypotenuse and my opposite side. So opposite and hypotenuse, the trig ratio that uses those two sides is sine. So sine of angle A is equal to our opposite, which is 18, over our hypotenuse, which is 27. To get rid of the sine and isolate our angle A, I'm going to take the inverse of sine on both sides of the equation. So now the inverse and the sine, those cancel, and now I have A is equal to the inverse of sine of 18 over 27. Now we're going to put that in our calculator, and rounding to the tenths place, we're going to get the measure of angle A is equal to 41.8 degrees.